Do you want your podcast interview to go viral, to be heard and shared by tens of thousands of people? Well, I'm going to tell you the trick to doing that. And the thing is that people are telling you this trick each and every day. You can spot someone that listens to podcast interviews, someone that listens to podcasts, can't you? The phrase usually starts off with, or the conversation starts off with, hey, I was listening to a podcast interview the other day. And then they start sharing a story with you. Maybe they start sharing an idea or an insight with you. You see, I can always remember the time where I was talking to a friend, Christopher Lockhead, and I said, I was listening to this podcast the other day, and the guest was so amazing. He talked about it's not a world of scarcity anymore. We've got abundant choices today. We've got abundant calories. We've got abundant customers out there. And Christopher stopped me and he goes, was that Mike Maples Jr.? And I'm like, yes, that was who it was. And Christopher goes, yeah, that was my podcast. So it proved not only that I listened to his podcast, but that I remembered the story. I remembered the insights. I remembered his opinion on things. Now, I may not have remembered his name. I may not have remembered that it was on Follow Your Different by Christopher Lockhead, but I remembered the ideas. I was talking about those continually. And you see, that's really what makes something go viral. Another client of ours, Bix Bixen, great mind, great futurist. He talked about what the actual number of shares on a podcast meant, right? Most of us look and say, well, what's the download number? Well, the download number isn't as meaningful as the number of conversations. And the conversations are so much harder to quantify. I used to think the conversation was between the guest and the host. And Bix showed me that no, the vast majority of the conversations are between the listener and themselves. Do I agree with that? How do I apply this to my life? So those are the conversations. And when something goes viral, that's when the person that listens to it starts to tell other people, hey, I was listening to a podcast the other day and I heard this idea or this insight. Now, one of the things that they never say is, I was listening to this podcast the other day and I heard this factoid. The unemployment rate is 11.6. It's meaningless, right? Not only is it meaningless, but by the time it comes out on a podcast, it's probably wrong. It's probably dated. And I cringe sometimes when I listen to my old podcasts. Common question people will ask, well, how many podcasts are there? And I was listening to one the other day and I said, there are over 400,000 podcasts out there. And I left it at that. And as I listen to it today, there are over 1.1 million podcasts. So if somebody listened to that today, they'd either think, guy's an idiot. I've heard that number numerous times and he is off by a factor of 3? Or they would think, oh, this is like a really old interview. Or they'd say, I don't know. If I really wanted to know the number of podcast interviews, I can Google that and find the exact number today. But numbers are meaningless. Nobody cares about the numbers. They care about, what does it mean to me? What does it mean to my business? What are the insights? You see, today, information is cheap. It's pretty much free, right? All you have to do is Google it, search it, and you'll find the information. You'll find the fact. But you won't find, what does it mean to me? What people will pay dearly for is the insights, the opinions, the recommendations. Think about it. That's what you pay experts for, right? The law is all online. It's all there, but you hire a lawyer in order to give their opinions and their insights on it. Same way for a doctor, right? Everything's on WebMD. You can run the tests, but what you're really paying for is the insights, the opinions, the what it means for you. And so I think it's the same thing on podcast interviews. The other day I downloaded some freebie lead capture mechanism that somebody had that said the top 10 tips for being a great guest. And the first one was, include factoids in everything because those can be shared. They can be put into memes. They can be put into social media. And I'm like, yeah, but they're quickly outdated. Nobody remembers them and they're meaningless, right? Why not just search Google and start putting things up there? To me, podcasts are about conversations. You want to be timely, but timeless. So if you do give a fact, if they ask you a direct question of how many podcast interviews or how many podcasts are out there, you can say, well, as of today in 2020, there are 1.1 million. But what this means is that it's still a fraction of the blogs that are out there. What it means to you is there's still opportunity. What it means to you is it's one of the fastest growing mediums. What it means to you is that it's easier than ever to get on a podcast, to speak directly to your ideal customer on a podcast, to start your own podcast. So facts are meaningless. What you get invited on as an expert, what you get paid for as an expert, is to put meaning, insights, and opinions to those facts. Think about that the next time you're on a podcast, the next time you're listening to a podcast interview, and share down below. Do you agree with me on that? Do you listen to podcasts for the stories, for the insights, for the meanings, or are you looking at it for news and facts? Different medium. For me, I can Google, I can watch or listen to the news, but for opinions, insights, and true applicable knowledge, that's why I turn to podcasts.